Forklift number 3. The first thing that bothered me was the sound of the printer. It wasn't loud, it was just that soft mechanical whir of it warming up. A low click, then the faint drag of paper being fed through rollers. I was alone in the security office when it happened. I remember glancing at the clock above the monitor wall, 2:17 a.m. The printer only ran when the system pushed out updated equipment logs. It was automated. Forklifts, loading docks, temperature sensors in the storage bays. It printed a fresh sheet anytime something changed. Nothing should have been changing. I sat there a few seconds longer than I should have, listening to the paper slide out. The warehouse was sealed at 10 p.m., every bay locked, motion sensors armed, badge access disabled for floor workers. I didn't move right away, I just listened. The printer finished. The room went quiet again except for the hum of the HVAC system. Then I stood up and walked over. The log sheet was still warm. Time stamped 2:16:43 a.m. Dock 7. Activity recorded. Forklift ID number 3. Ignition cycle detected. Temperature bay C. Door open/closed. I read it twice before my brain really caught up. Ignition cycle. That meant the forklift had been turned on. I leaned back in my chair and looked at the camera feeds. 12 monitors, black and white infrared. Everything looked still. Dock 7 was empty. Bay C looked closed. No movement indicators flashing. I checked the main access log. No badge scans since 9:58 p.m. No door alarms. I told myself it was a system glitch. The warehouse software was older than me. It froze up sometimes, printed duplicate logs, recorded phantom errors. But ignition cycle wasn't a common glitch. I picked up the radio and called it in to dispatch, mostly to cover myself. Control, this is Unit 3. Getting an equipment activity printout. No visual confirmation, probably a misread. They sounded half asleep. Copy. Make a round. So I grabbed my flashlight and keys and stepped out into the main floor. The warehouse always felt different after midnight. The air cooler, the fluorescent lights humming overhead, a kind of hollow echo when you walked. My boots made a steady rhythm against the concrete. I went straight to Dock 7. The loading bay door was shut, seal intact, padlock untouched. I stood there for a minute just listening, nothing but the building settling, a faint ticking from somewhere overhead. Then I walked toward Bay C. The temperature-controlled section had heavier doors, thick insulated panels. When I pulled on the handle, it didn't budge. Locked. I shined my flashlight through the small window. Rows of stacked pallets. Still, I let out a slow breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Probably a glitch. I did the rest of my round, slower than usual, just in case. Checked the break room, checked the maintenance hallway, even looked inside the forklift charging area. Forklift number 3 was parked where it always was. I crouched next to it. The engine casing was cool to the touch. I stood up and went back to the office. The monitors looked the same as before. Quiet, empty. I put the log sheet in the incident binder and wrote, "No visual confirmation, suspected system error." By 3 a.m., I'd almost convinced myself that's all it was. Then at 3:42 a.m., the printer started again. This time, I didn't move right away. I watched the monitors while it printed. Still nothing. When it stopped, I walked over. Forklift ID number 3. Ignition cycle detected. Forklift ID number 3. Movement recorded. Dock 7. Bay door pressure shift. Movement recorded. I felt something tighten in my chest, but not panic. More like confusion that wouldn't settle. I rewound the Dock 7 camera feed. At 3:40 a.m., the image flickered for half a second. Not a glitch exactly, just a slight shift in brightness. Then it went back to normal. No visible movement. I switched to the forklift charging station camera. Forklift number 3 was there. except it wasn't angled quite the same. I stared at the screen. When I'd checked it earlier, the forks had been lowered flat against the floor. Now they were raised slightly, just a few inches, enough to notice if you were looking for it. I zoomed in. The angle of the steering wheel looked different too, subtle, like someone had adjusted it. I leaned back slowly. No alarms had gone off, no doors opened, no motion sensors triggered. I got up again and walked back out onto the floor. This time the air felt colder. I went straight to the charging station. Forklift number 3 sat under the dim overhead light. The forks were raised, not high, just enough to slide under a pallet. I touched the metal, still cool. I walked around it. No keys in the ignition, no signs of forced entry. The charging cable hung neatly on the wall hook. I crouched down and looked at the tire tracks. The concrete floor always held faint rubber marks from daily operations. I followed the freshest set. They led away from the charging station. My throat felt dry. The tracks were darker than the others. They ran straight down the center aisle toward Dock 7. I followed them slowly. The warehouse felt too quiet. Even the HVAC seemed softer. When I reached Dock 7, I stopped. The tracks ended right in front of the bay door. They didn't turn. They didn't back up. They just stopped. I shined my flashlight across the concrete. No return tracks. I stood there a long time, staring at the floor. The door seal was still intact, the padlock still in place. I pressed my palm against the metal door. Cold. I walked back to the charging station. The forklift was gone. For a second I thought I'd lost my place, that I'd walked down the wrong aisle. But the charging cable was still hanging there, empty. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I just stood there in the aisle, listening to the building. After maybe 30 seconds, I heard something faint, a low electric hum. It came from somewhere behind me. Slowly, I turned. Forklift number 3 was parked back in its spot, perfectly aligned. Forks flat on the floor. I don't remember walking back to the office. I know I did because I was sitting in the chair when the printer started again, at 4:18 a.m. I didn't look at the monitors this time. I waited until the paper stopped moving. Then I walked over. Forklift ID number 3. Ignition cycle detected. Forklift ID number 3. Movement recorded. Forklift ID number 3. Return to charge. Time stamped exactly between the moment I left the charging station and the moment I came back. I looked up at the camera feed. The forklift had not moved. The rest of the shift passed without another printout. When the morning supervisor arrived at 6 a.m., I handed him the log sheets. He skimmed them and frowned. "System bug," he said. "We've been meaning to replace it." I nodded. He walked the floor with me. Forklift number 3 started fine. No errors in the console. But when he turned the key, the hour meter blinked. An additional 0.3 hours had been added to the total. Roughly 18 minutes. Neither of us said anything about it. I finished my shift and went home. I told myself it was faulty wiring, a software glitch, something explainable. That was 3 weeks ago. They've reassigned me to day shifts since then. Budget reshuffle, they said. Last night, one of the new overnight guards texted me. He asked if the printer in the office was supposed to run by itself. I didn't answer him. He sent one more message. Why does forklift number 3 keep logging movement when it hasn't left the charger? I turned my phone face down on the table. I've been trying to remember something specific. When I followed those tire tracks to Dock 7, I don't remember hearing the forklift drive back. But I do remember something else. The faint electric hum didn't come from behind me. It came from directly in front of me, from the other side of the sealed dock door. And I'm still not sure which side of that door the forklift was actually on. If you enjoy slow, unsettling horror stories, consider liking the video and subscribing. The car that waited. The first time I noticed the car, I thought it was someone using the parking lot to make a call. The light over Pump 3 had been out for months. Corporate kept saying they'd fix it. It left a dark pocket at the edge of the lot. Around 12:40 a.m., I looked up from the register and saw headlights roll into that shadow. The car didn't pull up to a pump. It just stopped under the broken light. Engine running. I watched for a minute. Late-night customers sometimes sat in their cars, scrolling before coming in. After about 5 minutes, the headlights shut off. The engine kept running. That part felt unnecessary. I went back to stocking cigarettes. When I looked again, maybe 10 minutes later, the car was gone. I didn't see it leave. I told myself I must have missed it. I work alone from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. It's quiet most nights. Truckers, the occasional insomniac, a few regulars grabbing energy drinks. The next night at 12:37 a.m., the same headlights slid into that dark space. Same slow approach, same spot under the broken light. This time I paid attention. It was a dark sedan. Maybe navy or black. Hard to tell without the overhead light. The windows were tinted. The engine idled steady. I stepped closer to the front window of the store, pretending to wipe down the counter. From inside, I could just make out the silhouette of someone in the driver's seat. They didn't move, didn't reach for a phone, didn't adjust the mirror. They just sat there. At 12:52 a.m., the headlights switched off. At 12:58 a.m., the car rolled backwards slowly and exited the lot without ever approaching a pump. I kept telling myself there were reasonable explanations. Someone waiting for a nearby business to close, a rideshare driver between calls, a couple arguing quietly. But there were patterns. The arrival time varied by only a few minutes. The duration stayed roughly 20 minutes. The engine never shut off, and they never once stepped out. By the fifth night, I started feeling the wait before it happened. I'd glance at the clock around 12:30 and feel my shoulders tighten. At 12:38 a.m., the headlights appeared again. This time, instead of staying behind the counter, I walked outside. The air was cold. The fluorescent lights over the other pumps buzzed faintly. I stopped near pump 1. The car sat under the broken light. I could see the driver more clearly from outside. A man, I think, late 30s or 40s. He was looking straight ahead. Not at me, not at the store, just straight ahead. I lifted my hand in a small wave. No response. I took a few steps closer. The engine idled evenly. I was maybe 15 feet away when the headlights clicked off. The sudden darkness made it harder to see inside. I stood there longer than I meant to, waiting for him to open the door. He didn't. After a minute, I went back inside. From behind the glass, I watched him. At exactly 12:59 a.m., the car reversed and left. The sixth night, I decided to write down the times. 12:36 arrival, 12:56 headlights off, 1 departure. The seventh night, I didn't look at the clock. I didn't want to give it the satisfaction of being predictable. But when the headlights washed across the front windows, I checked anyway. 12:39 a.m. That night, something shifted. The car pulled in slightly closer to the store, not near a pump, just closer. Still under the broken light, but angled differently. From the camera above the entrance, I could see the front grille more clearly. There was a small dent on the passenger side bumper. I hadn't noticed that before. I zoomed in. The windshield reflected the store lights, but I could make out his face more clearly now. He wasn't looking straight ahead anymore. He was looking at the front door, at me. I stood still behind the counter. We stayed like that for a long time, neither of us moving. At 12:58 a.m., he didn't turn off the headlights. He just kept them on. At 1:03 a.m., he was still there. That was new. My stomach felt heavy. I picked up the store phone and pretended to dial. He didn't react. At 1:07 a.m., the headlights shut off. The engine stayed on. He kept staring at the door. I realized something slowly. He wasn't waiting to come in. He was waiting for something else. I checked the security feed for the road. No other cars passing, no one walking nearby. The lot was empty except for him. At 1:12 a.m., he finally reversed. But instead of exiting toward the highway, he backed into a different spot, directly facing the front door, closer than before. The engine idled louder now. I could hear it faintly through the glass. He didn't turn off the headlights this time. They stayed on, flooding the entrance in white light. I felt exposed standing there. After about 2 minutes, he turned the wheel and left. I locked the door early that morning. The 8th night, he didn't show up at 12:40 or 12:50 or 1 o'clock. I felt relief at first. Then, at 1:17 a.m., the headlights appeared. But they didn't pull into the broken light spot. They pulled up directly in front of the store, blocking the entrance. The engine shut off immediately. The headlights stayed on. I stood frozen behind the counter. The driver's door opened. He stepped out. Average height, dark jacket, baseball cap. He didn't look at the pumps. He didn't look around the lot. He walked straight to the glass door and stopped. He stood inches from the glass, looking at me. I couldn't read his expression. It wasn't anger. It wasn't confusion. It was something blank, like he was confirming something. After a few seconds, he reached into his jacket pocket. My chest tightened, but he didn't pull out a weapon. He pulled out a folded piece of paper. He pressed it against the glass. Then he turned around, walked back to his car, and drove away. I waited several minutes before unlocking the door. The paper had tape on the back. I peeled it off carefully. It was a printed screenshot, a still image from our security camera, dated 8 nights ago, 12:41 a.m. It showed the store interior, the counter, the door, and me standing behind the register. Except in the image, I wasn't alone. Behind me, in the reflection of the cooler door, there was someone standing just inside the storage hallway. Tall, out of focus, watching me. I turned slowly and looked toward the hallway. It was empty. It has been empty every night since. The car hasn't come back, but sometimes around 12:40 a.m., I still glance at the broken light, and I can't decide which part bothers me more, the man who kept returning, or the fact that he might not have been watching me at all. He might have been watching what was standing behind me. Room 412. The first call light was already on when I walked into the closed wing. It wasn't blinking, it was steady. Room 412. That wing hasn't held patients in 5 years. They shut it down after a renovation stalled. The rooms are intact, beds made, monitors mounted, oxygen lines capped, but nothing is active. No admissions, no charts, no staff assigned, except me. I clean it twice a week on overnight rotation. Dust settles even in sealed places. Floors still need mopping. Bathrooms still grow that faint mineral ring in the toilets if you ignore them long enough. It was 1:18 a.m. when I noticed the red glow at the end of the hallway. The rest of the corridor was dim. Only half the overhead lights are left on to save electricity. The air always feels cooler in that wing. Not cold exactly, just still. Like the vents don't push as hard. I stood there for a few seconds watching the light. It didn't flicker. Room 412. I've been here 12 years, long enough to know which systems are live and which aren't. Call buttons in that wing aren't connected to the active nurse station. They were supposed to be disconnected entirely. I told myself it was leftover wiring catching a surge. Maybe maintenance had tested something. I rolled my cart down the hall slowly. The wheels made that soft rubber sound against the tile. The red light above 412 stayed steady. When I reached the door, I listened first. Nothing. No movement. No TV hum. No oxygen hiss. I pushed the door open. The room looked like every other time I'd cleaned it. Bed made tight, curtains halfway drawn, monitor screen dark, bathroom door open. The call button rested on the bed near the pillow, its cord neatly coiled like it had been placed there on purpose. The button itself glowed red. I walked to the wall panel and pressed the reset switch. The light went out instantly. I stood there another moment waiting for something else to happen. Nothing did. I finished cleaning 412 and moved on. At 2:03 a.m., 409 lit up. This one blinked twice before going steady. I didn't feel afraid, just irritated. It's harder to mop when you're doubling back down the hall. Room 409 looked the same as 412, undisturbed. Dust light and even across the windowsill, no footprints on the floor. The call button lay on the bedside table instead of the bed. Glowing red, I reset it. When I stepped back into the hallway, I noticed something I hadn't before. The air felt warmer. Not much, just enough that the back of my neck felt different. I checked the thermostat on the wall near the nurse's station. 68 degrees. Same as always. I finished the wing without another light. I didn't mention it to anyone. Hospitals run on small malfunctions. If you report every glitch, you don't get anything done. The next week, I saw the red glow before I even turned into the hallway. 3 lights this time, all steady, all at once. It was 1:26 a.m. I stopped pushing the cart. The corridor looked longer than usual. Maybe it was the way the red lights spaced out evenly, like markers. I reset 405 first. The button was on the floor beside the bed. I remember that specifically because I hadn't left it there last time. I always place it back on the mattress after cleaning. The cord was stretched tighter than before. Not tangled, just extended. I reset it. Then 409. Then 412. As I stepped back into the hallway after 412, 410 lit up. I didn't hear it click on. I just saw the red glow appear. I stood still, listening. The hospital at night has its own rhythm, distant elevator chimes, a rolling gurney somewhere in another wing, a cough carried through vents. This wing had none of that, just silence. Room 410's door was closed when I reached it. I'm certain I had left it open earlier. I opened it slowly. The room felt different, not disturbed, just occupied in a way that's hard to describe. The call button wasn't on the bed. It was in the bathroom, resting on the sink counter, glowing. I stepped inside the bathroom and looked at the mirror above the sink. For a moment, I thought I saw movement behind me in the reflection, but when I turned around, the room was empty. I reset the button and left the bathroom light on as I walked out. In the hallway, I looked back. The bathroom light shut off. I hadn't touched the switch. I walked back in immediately. The switch was still flipped up. I toggled it twice. The light came back on. I left the room without looking back again. The next few shifts were quiet. No lights. I started convincing myself it had been faulty wiring. Maybe someone accidentally reconnected the system during a repair. Then one Thursday, every room from 401 to 418 lit up at the same time. All of them. A straight line of red down both sides of the hall. It was 1:11 a.m. I didn't move for a long time. The red glow reflected faintly off the polished floor. I could feel my heartbeat in my ears, not fast, just noticeable. I walked to the nurse's station in that wing. The old central call panel, the one that's been dead for years, was dark. No alerts, no sound, just those individual door lights. I reset 401. Before I could reach 402, 401 lit up again. I went back inside. The call button was now tucked under the blanket, neatly, like someone had slid it there so it wouldn't fall. I pulled the blanket back. The mattress dipped slightly near the center. Not deeply, just a shallow impression. I pressed my hand against it. It felt warm. I stood there with my palm flat on the mattress longer than I meant to. The warmth faded slowly, not instantly, gradually, like something had just gotten up. I didn't reset the button this time. I walked back into the hallway. All the other rooms were still lit. I turned off the overhead lights in the corridor, one row at a time. The red glows became brighter in the darkness, more distinct, more intentional. I went to the end of the hallway and looked back. Every door was closed now. I hadn't closed them. The red lights shone above each one. I waited. One by one, starting from the far end near 418, the lights began to go dark. Not all at once, sequentially, moving toward me, like something traveling room to room. When it reached 410, it paused. The light above 410 flickered, then went dark. I didn't move. The air felt heavier. 405 went dark, then 401. The hallway was completely dark except for the faint emergency strip lighting near the floor. I realized I was standing directly outside 412. I hadn't planned to be. The door to 412 was slightly open. I know I had closed it earlier. Inside, the room was dim, but not completely dark. The bathroom light was on, casting a soft glow across the bed. The call button rested on the pillow, not glowing, just resting there. I stepped inside. The air felt warmer than the hallway. The mattress was slightly indented again, but this time not in the center. On the side closest to the door, as if someone had been sitting upright, facing out toward the hallway. I stood there for a long time, listening to the silence. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have. I picked up the call button. It wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It felt used. I pressed it. The red light above the door lit instantly. But this time I heard something. Not from the hallway, from inside the room. A soft, steady breathing. Close. Too close. I didn't turn around immediately. I don't know why. I just stood there holding the button, listening. The breathing was slow, even, like someone asleep. Right behind me. I placed the button back on the pillow carefully. The breathing stopped. I turned around. The room was empty. The mattress was flat. The bathroom light flickered once and went out. The red light above the door remained on. I walked into the hallway. Every other door was slightly open now, just an inch. Dark inside, waiting. I haven't told anyone about this. Maintenance would check wiring. Administration would ask for reports. Someone would suggest stress. But last night, something changed. I wasn't assigned to that wing. Another janitor was. Around 1:15 a.m., I saw him come into the main break room looking pale. He asked me if the call buttons in the old wing were supposed to work. I told him they weren't. He nodded slowly. Then he asked me something else. He said, "When you reset them, do they usually stop?" I didn't answer right away. He kept talking. He said every time he turned one off, another one lit up farther down the hall, like something was moving away from him, leading him somewhere. I didn't ask where, because I already knew. He finished his shift early, said he felt sick. Tonight, I'm back on rotation. It's 1:07 a.m. The hallway is dark, all the doors are closed, and none of the call lights are on, which somehow feels worse, because now I'm the only one who hasn't pressed the button yet. If you enjoy slow, unsettling horror stories, consider liking the video and subscribing.